Hi, welcome back everyone. Today we will continue our discussion on web and network security. Make sure that you watch the SQL injection demo, but today we'll talk a little bit more about it, but mostly focus on web security, payment security. We'll also talk about border gateway protocol and its issues. First of all, I really want to share this with you about COVID. Good news and bad news, not so good news. Just in case you don't know, there's hope. Moderna vaccine is 94.5 effective. That means out of the 95 illnesses cases, 90 people were on the placebo, the control group. Only 5 of those people who got sick have received the vaccine. So it's certainly not bulletproof, just like cybersecurity. Good thing is that Moderna vaccine is easier to transport, only minus 20 Celsius degrees. The Pfizer vaccine requires a much cooler temperature, but it's also very effective, 90%. And there's this Operation Warp Speed, making sure Americans get vaccinated and hopefully also distributed around the globe. Not so good news is that, and this is relevant to all the Thanksgiving gathering, family socials, and even if someone tested negative, you may still be infectious because the virus will start to spread even before the symptoms show up. And so here are the false negative rates of the antibody test. The antibody test is the PCR test that takes longer than the antigen test, which only takes 1 hour. And so even for the most accurate test, you may still have false negatives that miss the detection, which is pretty significant. Even for 3 days after symptoms started, you may have 20% false negative rate. So all these information, I want you to read about it. Make sure you watch Miles' demo on SQL injection. In the last 6 minutes, he also talked about possible preventions that's built in that help developers write secure code where there's this bind underscore param that assign parameters, the values to each attributes. Recap on what we discussed 2 weeks ago. We talked about email spoofing, authenticating website, pretty good privacy, the civil liberty, and then how does someone build a web of trust in email authentication and confidentiality. Most of the time was spent on discussing wireless security, why WEP is broken, and part of it is because they are reusing keys in a stream cipher. Stream cipher, you're not supposed to reuse keys. If you do, because of the birthday paradox, things will get collision. People will be able to figure out patterns in cyber attacks. WPA and WPA2 are 2 versions of the improvement, and we also talked about cross-site request forgery, and then have this token, which is, think of this as a watermark from the server to embed in forms. And so the authentic web server will know the token and will be able to accept the forms that bearing those tokens. And so one of the concepts that I didn't mention and I want to quickly say is called domain key. Domain key authentication is for authenticating domains in email. So if you get Amazon.com email, BankAmerica.com, to make sure that this is not a phishing email, there is a mechanism built in by all the email servers, Amazon servers, Bank of America servers, to store a public key in a DNS record. And this is usually called a DKIM record, so that the receiving end can be able to quickly query. I have done some work during my grad school. The deployment not very high, but it's one of the earliest standards for authenticating. Border gateway protocol is vulnerable to man-in-the-middle hijacking, and so we want to understand the scale of those attacks. Spectacular attacks, it's a huge scale, and one of the and sometimes are very stealthy if the attack is carried out carefully. The receiver end will still get the traffic, but then the traffic, you will see if you use Traceroute, it go all the way. And one of the in 2013 researchers find out some US traffic was diverted into very, very far places, as far as Iceland and the Belarus in Europe. And that was reported, detected more than 38 times, impacting a huge amount of IP blocks, and then sometimes lasts for days. And this is a photo of Iceland, which is actually very pretty. But then some traffic just has no business going there. For example, researchers find out the source and destination are both Denver, Colorado, but then the traffic using Traceroute went all the way to Iceland. And so this just shouldn't happen, no matter, and this will be a losing business, ISP carrying traffic in such an inefficient route, right? So something is fishy is going on. Another example is some traffic from Mexico to Washington, DC, went all the way to Minsk, Belarus. And that is also very close to Russia. It actually went through Russia, right? So it went through Russia, Frankfurt. And so then this doesn't make sense, right? From economic point of view, it doesn't make sense. And there's no way that the internet would calculate this type of route. So there must be some sort of a hijacking, but in order to understand is that why is that possible, we need to understand what is a border gateway protocol, BGP. And BGP is not for regular computers. It is for autonomous systems, and there they have a border gateway server. And so like Virginia Tech probably have a few of those kind of servers, they represent us on the internet. And so those are reflected at those black big dots. And this is, each organization has one or a couple. And they take care of routing. They understand, okay, if there's some traffic coming out of Virginia Tech and they want to go to Florida, what is the next autonomous system that should push this traffic to? And so autonomous system is representing organizations, and so they work together, right? Internet is where you have to help each other in order to pass traffic around and in order to reach destination. And so each cluster is an autonomous system, and the protocol is for autonomous systems representative of the routers, and to compute routes, find the best route, usually the shortest route, in order to route traffic for each other. And so there's some, like you can think of something similar to shortest path, Dijkstra's shortest path algorithm to that effect. But then this is completely decentralized, and that's the beauty of it. You don't have to know the entire knowledge of the internet, but then gradually you will be able to route anything to anywhere. And so you will be able to say, okay, if this goes to China, I should send it to router A. If this traffic goes to Georgia, I should send it to router B. And that's usually a reasonable route. And the way to do it is that you just regularly broadcast to your neighbors, and then broadcast their routes. And they will tell you, hey, Virginia Tech, I know how to get to Florida fast. And so you update your routing table accordingly. And so this is not happening immediately. This takes a little bit of time to propagate, for the information, for the knowledge to propagate. But eventually you figure out the quickest way to go to Florida, to go to California, to visit YouTube. One of the biggest assumption here is so this is the routing propagation and then routing table updates. But one of the biggest assumption here is that the route advertisement coming from your neighbors is implicitly trusted, and so we trust what, say, Roanoke College routers declare the quickest way to go to Washington DC, to route to traffic to Washington DC. And so there's for years and years there's implicit trust. How many routers are there? And we trust all of them, the AS, the autonomous systems. And of course people know that it's not secure, but then they're crossing their fingers. 2008, Pakistan single-handedly knocked out YouTube traffic, and for a few hours no one on the internet will be able to watch YouTube videos because everything were routed to Pakistan. Of course there's no YouTube there, and so they all went to a black hole, all the YouTube requests. And this is a graph that shows for a few hours, for 1 hour, like 1 hour, zero YouTube traffic on the internet, on the entire internet. And what happened is that Pakistan, because of the censorship, they were like, no one in this country should be able to visit YouTube. And so their border gateway update their table so that they absorb all YouTube traffics. And one of the way to do it is to say, hey, I have a very short route to YouTube. I can get your traffic in there immediately. And because of the default mechanism, the assumption, and so on, the routes are propagated, that's immediately will attract all the requests. And then they would just dump them. Okay, the Pakistan will dump them, but accidentally this routing information gets propagated to the neighbors, and neighbors tell the other neighbors, and then eventually everyone on the internet learned that Pakistan had really short route to YouTube, and so everybody route traffic to Pakistan, and of course get dumped. No one was able to visit the actual server. Similarly, another sort of high-profile BGP hijacking attack, and this has resulted in millions, tens of millions of dollars loss in Ethereum. This is the blockchain digital cryptocurrency websites, and this is slightly more complicated, but it started as a BGP hijacking, an intentional, not like Pakistan one is sort of inadvertent hijacking. Intentional hijacking DNS traffic, redirect DNS traffic that was meant for Amazon Web Services, and then be able to feed fake DNS information into users claiming to be a DNS authoritative domain. And so end up redirecting a lot of traffic to the fake Amazon, the fake bogus server for my Ether wallet. So the hackers did a whole bunch of things. The BGP hijacking, redirected DNS lookup, and then set up a fake my Ether wallet websites. Okay, and the users, the victims that are infected in the impacted area will try to visit my Ether wallet, but then was only because of the DNS traffic got redirected. The translation is wrong. You say myetherwallet.com, what's the real IP address? Instead of having your real IP address, the DNS traffic got redirected and controlled by the attacker, and so you get the fake website's IP address. And so at this time, you may think, okay, because of the SSL TLS, the victim should be smart enough to spot the fake website immediately. You were right. Unfortunately, some of the victims are not that technical savvy, and then they, had no idea this could be happening. Log in into the fake site, review the credential, and lost bunch of cryptocurrency. BGP SEC is a protocol that's continue being developed and then deployed very slowly, and it uses digital signature, public keys, and to ensure that all the information, the route information, the updates get authenticated. So very important. You can read more about the BGP SEC. We won't be able to get into it. Go back to the web security, right? So BGP, I would say it's network security. It's not specifically for the web applications. Go back to web security. Something I just learned that I really wanted to share with you while I was listening to that talk last week at the conference. I was like, I want to share this with my students. Autofill that we are all very familiar with, right? So right now, if you want to buy anything, you just enter the first letter of your first name and then everything fill out for you. Turns out that browsers would populate all input fields, even for some hidden boxes in the form. You don't see it, but then the form has certain input fields that is requesting your value. Browser will like, oh, I know the value of this. And so some websites actually abuse this feature and to put up a really simple form, enter your email address, and so that we can subscribe you. You can subscribe to this blog. But then they collect lots of information, home address, phone number. So one of the study from University of Illinois, Chicago, looked into how many websites are doing this and what kind of hidden auto-filled fields. And luckily, I was looking at this table on the left for both type of browser, Firefox and Chrome. This is pretty popular. This type of practice is popular. No credit card, which is good. On the right-hand side, it shows the ranking. You may ask, okay, would the good websites not doing this, collecting information, secretly collecting information, abusing autofill feature? But if you look at this, not really. On the left are higher ranked domains, and this is based on Alexa ranking on the popularity, the amount of traffic. So not really, there's just almost equally distributed. One of the solution, the prevention, of course, is based on looking at the form properties, and they have, the authors has a extension. I was not be able to find the link for the extension, but I remember they said that it's open sourced. So it's sort of a heuristic. Heuristic means that you approximate. Does this field look like it should be populated by autofill or not? And so I welcome you to check out the paper. It's relatively easy to follow. I have a link at the bottom. OWASP is an organization. It's a nonprofit organization for strengthening web security, network security, and helping developer education. They have this top 10. OWASP top 10 is very well known. Top 10 web application security risks. And so I listed the top 3. The injection, SQL injection, LDAP is a directory service injection, just vulnerable software where it can take untrusted information unsanitized. That's always the biggest threat. Cross-site scripting, it's code injection. Broken authentication. you have tokens, passwords that are can be brute forced, abused, intercepted, hijacked. It's a top two. Sensitive data exposure, and this could be many forms. And one of the common form is that you have data at rest, like in storage or in transit, that are not protected, not encrypted, and so those are pretty common vulnerabilities. There's also misconfiguration, access control, and so that's a good list, and making sure that if you graduate from Virginia Tech, and then if you really have to secure something, make sure you're familiar with all those resources. You almost don't have to immediately completely remember everything, but you at least know where to find resources. So suppose you are a web admin, or you will be a web admin, how difficult it is to detect malicious JavaScript code on your server. Think of this way: if will you be able to tell whether or not your website are hosting malicious JavaScript? Can you do some sort of scanning to see, oh, this line is okay, this line I don't recognize, where does it come from? So can you do it? The answer is not very, the answer is, it's going to be difficult, because first of all, there's a lot of advertisement delegation. There's this ecosystem. You don't even know where does the code come from, because sometimes could be embedded there because of business relationship. And a lot of times that JavaScript is so confusing. It's not readable at all. It's not like your Java. If you think C is hard to read, JavaScript is equally confusing, if not more confusing. And so researchers find out that there compromised servers, and so servers, some are not very properly managed. Maybe weak password or unupdated software, and gets abused, and so hackers would embed. So hackers will not deface your website. And nowadays, very rarely they deface your website, but then they may use your website to redirect legitimate users to visit hackers' website, attackers' website. And so this type of redirect scripts, it turns out to be quite common in reality, and it's extremely hard to detect. And so at the top you see some real redirected malicious sites, and after the victims get redirected, they may have drive-by downloads, malicious information gets downloaded, and phishing websites. And so it's very hard to tell. If you say, okay, I will be able to recognize the code that is malicious, no, you won't. It's very difficult. And so you see that at the top, A is obfuscated JavaScript code that will, after deobfuscation, it is pretty short, right? Pretty short, it just redirected to certain website. But then with obfuscation, you cannot tell with your eye. In the obfuscation, you can maybe execute it, runtime, and statically it's difficult, but you can execute it in a virtual machine. But then you understand that the obfuscation is a common technique for hiding attack code. And so because of those kind of stealth mode attack, it's very, very hard for web admin, system admin to realize their machine is compromised. SQL injection, last time we already saw this cartoon, and I just want to say a little bit more, because I want you to try very hard to connect this to buffer overflow attack, to cross-site request forgery attack. And the commonality is that you have untrusted input. In this case is a query, a form. you take inputs that will now then impact your execution, because it's a database, so there's no, it's not control flow or data flow, but then it's related to the confidentiality of data, whether or not some data should be revealed or not, and whether or not the table should be deleted, and so whenever there is this untrusted data impact the normal execution, critical execution, this creates vulnerability. And so I want you to think a little bit, take a step back from the specific attack, and then think about all the ones that we talked about that has similar flavor. And so make sure that you realize that validate user input, sanitize user input is absolutely important. Card systems back in 2005, that's 15 years ago, lost 43 million credit card numbers. Part of the reason is because they are still stored unencrypted. And another big issue is that they have vulnerability, SQL injection vulnerabilities, and the hacker go through the front end web server through a form, web application, and then be able to access the backend database and then retrieve, I think one of the FTC complaint files that in 3 separate big files downloaded credit card numbers. And usually you have this web server that do not, it's sort of like a front, you have a shield, right? So, all the attacks were absorbed by the web server, and the database is relatively okay. But then there's a connection, right? So you make queries to go back and forth. And if this connection is very direct connection, and I would say this, they really have to segment, they have to work on their segmentation, segregate the network in a way so that there's no simple direct, like internet, only one hop connect to big database that store 40 million credit cards, and you wanted them to be further apart, maybe have more hops for attackers to jump. And so, but then understanding that it's eventually get reached, and so the company went out of business, of course. At some point, you read the report. It says the card system was in compliance with PCI DSS data security standards during the breach. And another company that was also in compliance during their breach is Target. We'll talk about in a few seconds. But think about, is it difficult, or how easy or how difficult it is for a security analyst or an auditor, right? So you got certified PCI certification. They will probably say, oh, do you have SQL vulnerabilities on your website? And they probably do some tests. But then how hard it is to ensure that there's no vulnerability in any corner of your website. Very difficult, because it's, there are several steps, very difficult to understand whether or not the website, given a website, does it have vulnerability? And SQL, if this website has no connection to the backend server, then certainly no vulnerability. But then sometimes it's hard to understand the JavaScript, as we have seen, so hard to decipher the code. Another challenge is that, do you know that you have collected all possible websites? There's just so many websites to discover, and a lot of our dynamics generated, and so just multiple issues, and there's fuzzing URL, and basically collect all possible pages, possible websites, is a first step. And then evaluate for each website, for each page, their vulnerability, and both are difficult, active research area. Target was also back in 2013 was in compliance, but then had this pretty huge 70 million credit card lost. Data breach where attackers managed to install malicious software called BlackPOS on the terminal, the payment terminal. So what is the payment card industry data security standard? And so I want to discuss this a little bit. This is all the big credit card companies, Visa, Master, American Express, Discover, they put together association, alliance, and it's a community standard. They say if any vendors, merchant want to work with us, want to accept a Visa credit card, then Mastercard, you have to be satisfying certain security criteria in your system. You cannot be sloppy, and then we have to sustain the payment. We have to pay and settle fraudulent charges. So very earlier on, they started an extremely comprehensive list of requirements for merchants, big and small, and also card processing companies. So card system that we mentioned before is not a merchant, is also not a bank. It is a card processing, like intermediate processor aggregator company. And turns out the credit card payment system is really complicated. You have an issuer bank, that is the bank that issues your credit card. You also have, and then merchant, they will have to accept it, the card, in order for you to do it. If it's a very small company, obscure card, and then they will say we don't take it. And the acquire bank would have to be able to submit the other transactions and then get paid and get settled. And so you involve lots and lots of entities, and every single one of them, as long as they touch credit card, they will have to be compliant with DSS. One of the biggest thing in DSS is a questionnaire. The merchant, the company has to fill out a questionnaire. Not a very terribly, there are also fine-grained items, but then this is sort of the overview. They will ask questions, is your data, do you have a protected storage? And hopefully your answer is compliant. And if your answer is not compliant, then of course you will not be able to get certified, and you will not be able to continue running your business. If you continue taking credit cards, once discovered, they will have to discontinue your service. And a good lesson learned after the target data breach is that the PCI group updated the specifications and require multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication became a requirement at the beginning of 2018, 2-3 years ago. So that's really great news, and then it's very effective if you want to have a remote access. Then that remote user has to have multi-factor authentication. And of course, is it 2 authentication or 3 authentication? That's really subject to the actual implementer. As long as you convince the auditor that you're using multi-authentication, you're gonna be fine. For big vendors, they will have to do multiple things. We're looking at the big vendor is level 1. You're thinking Walmart, Target. they have to fill out the questionnaire. They have to have an on-site auditor every year, and then they will have an automatic scanning happening every quarter. And automatic scanning is our focus because this is a requirement for all vendors, big and small. Even every time I do grocery shopping at Oasis, the Chinese grocery store, I think, okay, I hope you guys have passed the quarterly scan using an approved scanning vendor, because they're still cannot take chip card, and so they're still, you have to slide. And so what is this scanning? What's happening here? Scanning is external network scan. Black box, right? So for big ones, Walmart and Target, they will have a person, an auditor, be on site for a few weeks, for at least several days, and to say how do you store your credit card numbers, and so it's like, you know, in person, but this is just automatic. You can download the software, you work online, you pay them, and then you get your network scan, and you tell them URL. So, but then the question is, I did some study. I wonder, what are the security guarantees of those scanners? Are the scanners good? Because we know that it's pretty difficult to fully exhaust every corner, every page of a website, and ensure there's no SQL injection vulnerabilities, no cross-site scripting vulnerability. I know it's an open research problem. So, but then there are companies who are already making money doing this business certification. So, and I looked into some of them, and I was very shocked that some of the description of their scanning capability is very primitive. They'll look for, okay, open ports, so what are the available TCP service, the version of your operating system. Some of them are not really security, right? Where are the injection scan? So we did our own study, a very quick summary. We find that a lot of the scanners are certifying vulnerable websites, which is not good news. And similarly, because of that, the majority of websites are not PCI compliant, even though that there should be in order to operate. So a little bit more details. We have paid companies, and some are trial, but we selected scanners, and we didn't publish the name because there's fine prints and talking about if you publish our scanning results, we're gonna sue you. So anonymize the scanner names because they're all commercial software. Some are high end, some are low end. Some of them are not official scanners. And so if you look at the PCI website, they have a list of endorsed scanners. But then there's also others, they are not listed, but then they're still doing business. And we build a test bed, which is a e-commerce website, not a real one, but it looks like it's selling electronics, and they're full of bugs. And we ask those commercial scanners, can you scan us? And then we fix the bugs until the scanners is happy and issue us the certificate, certify us, approve us. And then we compare which scanner is the most strict. Are they following strictly the PCI specifications? And it's important to know the PCI, that organization is not providing any specific tools, so it's just a guideline. So this is a snippet of the findings, focusing on SQL injection and then JavaScript, cross-site scripting. At the bottom on the left, cross-site request forgery. So all the things that we've talked about, right? So you may feel like, okay, you already talked about in undergraduate class, and some of the concept was was discovered, the vulnerability was discovered years and years ago, we would expect the scanners to be able to catch them. And especially some of the vulnerability we embedded on the front page, the login page, right? So you don't even need to, we didn't hide it. Cross means no detection, check means detection, and require fixing. So you see a whole bunch of cross not be able to detect it. On the right hand side, the last 4 columns are website scanners. They are not packaged as PCI scanners, but then some are commercial, some are open source, but also not very good. And really disturbing. By the way, on the column we have CVSS score. This is a score that calculate by us following the requirement, the guidelines, the severity of the attack. So this is a summary. This is, we have a total 29 vulnerabilities embedded in the test bed. And so ideally they should detect all 29 and ask us to fix all 29, because all 29 vulnerabilities are must fix according to the PCI guidelines. And so the PCI provide guidelines saying if this is not passed, you must fail this website. And in reality, we have this, we have 2 numbers for each scanners. The first one is the number of vulnerabilities already still existed, 7. And then in the parentheses are the number of vulnerabilities they detected, but then they say, oh, you're fine, you don't have to fix them. And so we want both of them to be 0. But then clearly, especially if you look at scanner 3, 25 vulnerability, only detected 4. And then there are 4 vulnerabilities they said you don't have to fix. So, and you may wonder why didn't they ask you to fix it? Well, they are not trying to be very strict, and so that you next time you ask them again to get certified. If you're too strict, you know, if you think a very strict teacher always give people D in a class, the next time the students were like, don't take her class, you know, she will fail you, would give you D. So it's very misaligned with the incentives. CVSS stands for Common Vulnerability Scoring System. There's several calculators for you to calculate based on attack difficulty, user interaction. For example, if an attack does not require any user interaction, you get a higher score. And so the score is between 0 to 10, I think. So we also want to see whether the websites have existing vulnerabilities, because the scanners are not very good. And so we wrote our own scanner, a very simple, relatively simple one that we focus on being lightweight. We don't want it to be very intrusive, causing production websites to crash. And so we only implement a subset of the scanner, and because commercial scanners they will say, oh, the commercial scanners can scan at a designated time, right? But this, for our research prototype, we cannot. Good news and bad news. The row in green are 0, like 0 vulnerabilities in those categories that we find out of 1,200 websites. But then for majority of the website, more than half, 63%, they don't do script integrity check, which is actually required by PCI. That means if you download, if you fetch JavaScript from a third party, like content provider, you're supposed to check the hash with the original website's hash, making sure that the content provider or transmission in the middle, there's compromise. There's no compromise. So Not a lot of websites follow that. Some examples, for example, examples of insecurity certification around domain name that seems to be the more severe issues. Sending forms in HTTP is very bad. You want to do HTTPS or for sensitive information, including email address. In this study, we realized that the specification is so comprehensive, beautifully written, but the enforcement is very, very tough. And then there's a big gap. It's almost the designer of the specification do not care about how the enforcement is done. And the enforcements, because the field, including the research field, everything is still not perfect. And so all the scanners, they don't perform very well. And so lots of work to be done, right? So regulators, they probably have to improve test bed, and also provide more guidance in the way that one of the PCI folks that I talked with, they said a lot of the scanners, they game the system. After a couple of tests, they will know where everything is, where the vulnerability is. And so you have to keep changing the test bed. For researchers, this is very important that do work on open source tools, and so that you raise the bar for commercial products as well, raise the standards for commercial products. And then we do need people to invest in those kind of open problems, even though some of the concept, if you say cross-site request forgery, people think it's not interesting because I know this type of vulnerability. I know conceptually how to prevent it, but then in reality, there's still a big gap, and that gap has to be filled by someone, and researchers should lead. For users, just to understand the PCI, the DSS, raise awareness. Regulatory authorities really has to think very hard about the implementation, the enforcement. If the specification is too strict, then nobody can pass. Then it's this a bad mentality. By the way, this testbed and our PCI checker, this a lightweight scanner that we came up with, is open source. And if you want to have more information, check out my website. And this is still very active research area, the web security in particular, web application, understanding whether a website has vulnerabilities, the injection vulnerabilities. And again, it's how to make it robust, how to make your scanning lightweight. And then one of the frustrating thing is false positives. If one of the scanner we tested, will not say the name, has a forum, a couple of people would say, hey, this scanner raised a false alarm. I don't have a vulnerability, but then it keeps telling me that there's a vulnerability. And then instead of addressing that false alarm, that user got banned from the forum. And so it's frustration on both sides. I think it's how to ensure it is not a false alarm, and then it's just to take a lot of time, right? So take a lot of time, and also everyone, sometimes the definition of is it a false alarm? Is it a false alarm for vulnerability is also hard to define, and so it's just to show you the complication in reality. On paper, for now, you don't have to worry about all these messy little details, but then in reality, you probably have to, if you have to get a PCI certification, you have to switch to another scanner. And because otherwise they will not, if you keep arguing with them, I mean, they will certify you after you fix the alerts, certain alerts. So, but it's absolutely, I think there's researchers who will say, oh, those compliance, this regulations are not very useful, we're too strict, we're too loose. I think that those are very used. Regulations are extremely important. The question is can we enforce them in a very intelligent way, effective, productive way, as opposed to just wasting time. Wasting time means that I heard stories about PCI auditors on site ask people to change elliptic curve encryption, which is stronger than RSA, back to RSA because the elliptic curve key size is shorter. And then they somehow only know that you have to use 2048-bit RSA. And anything other than that or smaller than that, that number is not acceptable. So that, of course, is extremely frustrating, right? We need to have informed auditors. But then I don't think it's a certification problem. I don't think it's a regulation per se. It's problem. It's the enforcement problem. How to enforce it. And with AI, can we have more automated auditing, right? Automated auditing. Like the external scan is completely automated. We'll just give the scanners a URL of our website, and they will do their thing. And some take a couple of days, and some take a few hours. And so maybe the auditing, and then that can also be automated using AI, machine learning, that eliminate the uninformed, uneducated auditor problem. And because it's extremely frustrating to have someone just do check. Okay, so that is that's all I want to do. I have a few more slides on SQL injection. I will not go over them. Please take a look after class. All right, that's it. Thank you so much. I'll see you later this week.